Welcome back to Beyond the Buzzer, the Basketball Fix's premier video and podcast, talking about everything NBL. We got Josh Higgins up on that side, the face and the voice of NBL, independent NBL. Jez and myself here in the studio that Jez has built with his own hands. Josh, back for another week. NBL is so close you can almost touch it.
Yeah, it definitely is, mate. It's 10 days away as of recording. So it'll be 9 days probably by the time we get this video out as well. So I couldn't be more excited for NBL basketball. And I guess we'll get into some news very shortly. There's been a couple of big signings as well to round out the off-season period. But this has just been a hectic off-season. I've sat here doing my top 25 and it was like a top 50 into a top 45 into a top 40. I just couldn't really get rid of names. So it's going to be coming out very soon on Fox Sport. Yeah, well, no, I think it's a pretty good top 25 list. I think a lot of people will have not a lot to say about it. A few guys of quality missing out, but again, there's always room for improvement. But I can't wait for the end of the season, for the start of the season, and obviously this episode as well, boys. Looking forward to talking some shit with you guys.
Yeah, well, Josh, I'm really looking forward to this 25 list. I'm not going to drop it. I'm not going to let it go because you love these lists, and you just gave us a little sneak peek, and I don't know. Derek Rucker might have something to say about it. We'll see.
I think he will. I think he'll definitely will. And just as much as I'll have a say about his list as well, that's the whole banter of it as well. But yeah, it'll be dropping on Fox Sport, I'd say early or late this week, early next week. So we'll see that very soon as well on the Fox Sport channels.
All right. So don't forget to subscribe to the Basketball Fix here on YouTube so you get all the content from not only us, but all the other people involved in the Basketball Fix. This episode today, it's all about NBL 26 award predictions. But first up, Josh, hit us up with some news from around the NBL.
Yeah, obviously some exciting news from an NBL's perspective. So for the Illawarra Hawks, the defending champions, they have gone on and signed Jaquori McLaughlin, which was a rumoured signing that was going to happen, and he spent a little bit of time there throughout the preseason, and then obviously the NBL Blitz as well. Had an impressive game against the Perth Wildcats in that win over the Wildcats in the NBL Blitz, and he is now signed on a one-year deal. So boys, I ask you this question. He's going to come in as a backup for this season. It does seem like it as well. And I believe the hope is that Tyler Harvey, will become an Australian citizen. So what do you think of this signing for the defending champs? Because I'm not sold on their roster. I know you're an Illawarra Hawks supporter, Ryan. So how about you go first?
Okay. We just said in the background, Jez, you want to go first, but put me in, no worries. I think, from my perspective, what was so good about Illawarra last year was the energy that Will Hickey brought off the bench. And the times where he did start, it was a bit of a surprise moment for the opposition to then have to handle that. Him in a full-time starting role, I'm not really sure about how that works, the dynamic of the team. And most of all, if we get that energy off the bench again. I'm a pretty general basketball follower. I don't know the ins and outs, the depths of everything. So for me, it's going to be about seeing it first and foremost on the court and over the first few games. How does this kind of all work together? So it's a very interesting thing for me as a Hawks fan to see this team that just won a championship and now lose four very key, was it 3 starters and 2 starters and 2 bench, very important bench players gone, and try to fill that gap and see what can come about of it.
Yeah, I think the Will Hickey experiment is going to be one to watch over those first few rounds because he's been so impactful, such a great 6-man, changes games, turns it on its head. He comes in with that right energy. Now being a permanent starter, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But I was thinking more for Tyler Harvey. Maybe he needs to go and play for Adelaide because then he'll just get an Australian citizenship just like that. They've got the connections there. So maybe that trade needs to happen if he wants to become an Aussie. But yeah, I think bringing in McLaughlin, nice that they could have a little try before you buy, I think. So they sort of did not the same type of thing last season with Darius Days, where they played against Darius Days and then picked him up. And it's been sort of the similar type of concept. So I think Justin Tatum knows what he's doing, puts a lot of faith in him. They got to test him out a little bit, see where he fits. So yeah, I think, good for them. They needed to fill that role. A good guy coming off the bench, or I think you can also see that maybe he will start and Hickey could come off the bench if that doesn't work. So Yeah, I think it's a good trade and an important piece for them to have done a few weeks out from the season. I think they didn't want to wait any longer before they brought in that next import. So I think it's the right time now. You just stick to your guns.
No, definitely. And I think it's a relatively good signing for the Illawarra Hawks. And Justin Tatum has had a connection with Jaquori McLaughlin as well. They both played in Indonesia together as well. And the other one of note, quickly before we move on, was the Perth Wildcats were circling there for a little bit. And John Rillie and Jaquori McLaughlin have spent a bit of time together as well in college. John Rillie actually was an assistant coach when Jaquori McLaughlin was over there in the system as well. So, yeah, obviously a couple little connections there in the NBL, but eventually he finds himself at the Illawarra Hawks. Now, the second and third one are very, very interesting ones. So the same day that the Perth Wildcats were announcing their star import Mason Jones, the Adelaide 36ers and Bryce Cotton dropped a complete bomb, which has changed the trajectory, I believe, of the NBL this season. And I think we'll start with Bryce because I think this is arguably bigger than anything that's happened this offseason. You know, him signing there was huge, but now him being an Australian citizen. Now, what this could mean, boys, is he may sign, he's now an Australian. That will happen before the start of the season. So what they can do right now from an Adelaide 36ers perspective is they can pull Dejan Vasilievic's contract off of the marquee spot. That will then put Bryce Cotton as a marquee player and save a significant amount of salary cap as well. From there, what they will need to do, if they want to bring in another import or a high-level local, depending on how they want to do it, they will need to cut a player and then they will be able to bring in an import or another marquee. So what you can have, people at home, there's been a bit of confusion around this. You can have 4 players. So you can have 3 imports, 1 marquee, 2 imports, 2 marquees, however you want to do it. But there has to be a total of 4, no more than 4. So it's going to be very interesting. So I think they need a defensive stopper. I've been talking about the Antonius Clevelands of the world, the Justin Simons, someone who can lock down from 1 to 4, even the 5-mans as well, the small ball. So what are your thoughts on Bryce Cotton, boys? This is an exciting one. I'll throw it to you first, Jez.
I think it was all a part of the plan. I don't know, like this whole move, Bryce being so committed just from nowhere. I don't know. Somehow I feel like, I don't know, falling into this conspiracy theory type thing of they knew this was all going to happen. They had it all planned out. That someone knows someone at the immigration office, and they were going to sort it out. And that's why Bryce is like, I'm moving to Adelaide, to the enemy. But you know, I think, yeah, it certainly opens things up for Adelaide. Like that next step, it's dangerous because you've got your team, everything was set. And if it hasn't been in the pipeline, you bring in someone late. We know how sort of that can be. You know, it could change Adelaide, like you said, if they bring in a defensive player, and it could really give them that last little piece that they need to maybe be absolute favourites to win the title, or it could derail everything because you bring in some guy, you bring in a new import, you know, in a few weeks' time or when they sort it all out and just fuck everything up. There's already a lot of personality in Adelaide at the moment and a lot of guys that want to be the face and want the ball and want the attention, and you bring in one more, you can go bust.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's opportunity to fuck it right up, but there's opportunity to make it a little bit better. And Adelaide are very good at
fucking it up.
Exactly. So history says that they'll make that move. And but you know, as a general basketball fan, it's fantastic to see Bryce get this opportunity. He's given so much to basketball in Australia, and you know the amount of time he's lived in the country to now be able to call it his home and be a part of the Australian culture and the Australian way of life as an Australian. It's fantastic. It's something that we all share and treasure. So it's fantastic for him. And they did say that it was in the pipeline, you know, for a long time. And you know, we know that around citizenship that it takes a while. We live in different countries and it takes years sometimes. So whether or not it was this conspiracy, it's fun to think that way. But you know, whether it is or not, you know, it's fantastic for Bryce and his family to have that opportunity.
Before we go on to anything else, Josh, do you think he plays a game for the Boomers?
Oh, I was about to say #Boomer Bryce in the chats. I reckon it would be incredible. I don't think Oh, to be honest with you, he definitely could. But like, I think he said saying, I know it was probably in frustration of not getting the Australian citizenship, but I did think he did say something that he wouldn't play for the Boomers, with how far and how long this process has gone on. But if the opportunity presents itself at, the Olympics in 2028 in LA, I would put my money on that. Bryce will be definitely in that training camp and be circling around the squad as well. So, Paddy Mills is on the way out, and there's a guy called Bryce Cotton who could well and truly, I think, fill some of those shoes as well that Paddy Mills will leave. But the last big news is circling around the Perth Wildcats, and we've got an incredible show coming after this, boys, as well. So a nice little brief one on this, but Mason Jones has officially signed with the Perth Wildcats. Now, we will speak about our predictions later on in the show, but this has changed the trajectory for me for the Perth Wildcats. And I'm going to run you through a few of these stats, boys. So he's an ex-NBA player. He's played for the Houston Rockets, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Sacramento Kings. He's also spent a big amount of time in the G League as well. Now, his most recent G League season, he played for the Stockton Kings. So the Sacramento Kings' G League affiliate. He averaged 23.6 points per game, 5.1 rebounds, and 7.7 assists. So he's going to give you the scoring punch, but he's also going to be able to facilitate and bring your teammates into it as well. He's a 6'4" point guard. He shot it at 49% from the field, and get this, boys, 45% from the three-point line as well. So this guy is an absolute bucket. He had a game last season where he had 49 points and 10 assists with 10 three-point makes. And even looking at his last 5 games in the G League last season, 19 points, 13 rebounds, 27 points, 11 assists, 21 points, 38 points, 47 points, and 10 assists. So this guy is a certified bucket. I think he's going to be up there in some pretty rare form. I think once again, with so many incredible imports coming over, he could definitely be a top 5 to top 10 player become the end of the season. So, boys, Mason Jones, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's a pretty huge signing on the eve of the season, especially, everybody's sort of writing Perth off, in different areas, and then they sign this guy, and now you're turning a former Perth Wildcats supporter that turned into an Adelaide 36ers supporter to be now back a Perth Wildcats supporter. So it's definitely made some moves in the NBL this season for sure already, and he hasn't even played a game yet. But I don't know, it's like with any of these imports, I think it's just another import that's coming into the league that's obviously showing that the NBL has what it takes to start attracting some of these big players. He's a superstar of the G League coming here to play in the NBL, which is exactly what they want. But as we all know, you don't know until they get here and start playing NBL basketball what they can do and if they're going to be a game changer or not. We saw what happened with Kendrick Davis and all the hype around him last year, and he pulled it off, but we've seen many fall and disappear. So I don't know. I'm not ready to say that the Perth Wildcats are going to win the championship, but who knows if someone else on this panel or podcast will have their say when it comes to predictions for the NBL 26 season.
What I will say quickly there, boys, what I want to say quickly is I think my patience and my consistency with going for the Adelaide 36ers for a small period of time has changed the trajectory of the franchise. All Perth Wildcats fans, thank me down in the comments below, all right? I said I was going to go for Adelaide, and Mark's pulled the checkbook out and gone and grabbed Mason Jones. So once again, thank yous, likes and subscribe. We'll do it all for the boys.
That's fantastic, boys. Let's move along. We want to get into the awards part. And Josh, you touched on John Riley, and he's obviously the coach of the Perth Wildcats, and a number of coaches that have the possibility this season to really shape a future for their team. We've seen, obviously, Justin Tatum throughout the last few years be like the pinnacle of coaching in the NBL, the way he's just turned that team around, got them together, and now won that championship last season. We have the old head in Brian Goorjian, who we've speculated a little bit on this show previously, possibly has done his dash in the league. Is he too old?
Pulled a hammy.
He's pulled. He's in the retirement home. Yeah. He sticking around a bit too long, a little bit like Wayne Bennett or was it Sheedy or one of those blokes in the AFL as well that maybe should have finished a couple of years ago. Then you have these up and coming young coaches that have really been able to find the core players and develop them. And now you're seeing teams emerge under these young coaches that could be pushing for championships. Josh, I want to hear your thoughts first on who your coach of the year is and and maybe give us some insight into how you set up this award in your head and what you're looking for in a coach.
Yeah, this is, I think, one of the more interesting awards to sort of try to predict, because there's a couple of ways you can go. There's the sheer, someone goes out and wins a ridiculous amount of games. They might only lose 7 or 8 games and they have to be the coach of the year. Now, if that happens this season, that guy will definitely win the coach of the year because of how close this season is going to be. Now, the other way is, a guy who has potentially had a team who's down the bottom of the ladder, which is what I'm going for, and that's Adam Forde. So when you look at Adam Forde and his coaching career, he has been an underdog, and he's played that to the Cairns Taipans faithful and the Cairns community as well. And when I look at Adam Forde, I'm obsessed with Forde. He's had such a good pedigree coming up. He coaches a local back in my hometown here in Rockingham. He's spent time at the Perth Wildcats, the Sydney Kings. He's won championships wherever he's gone and done very, very well. So his pedigree stacks up with the best of them. And if it wasn't for salary cap and financial stresses, I think he would have an NBL championship by now because he's such a genuinely good coach. And the last time he won the Coach of the Year award was back in 2023. So not that long ago, but it was when Cairns had one of those seasons where they went straight up and they made the semi-finals, and he had a really, really good crew around him. And once again, he was finally seen as the league's best coach that year. So since then, though, they've finished 8th and then 10th in 2024 and 2025. So for me, I think this seems like the time right now where Adam Forde has the team, he has the statistics, he has the play style and the coaching pedigree, I guess, to rise back up the ladder and potentially win another NBL Coach of the Year. It'd be a massive rise, boys, for sure.
Now, Josh, before we get to Jez's pick here, I just want to cast your mind back to last season and our award predictions. How many did you get right?
No idea. I think we've buried that tape. I think I tried to go for more controversy last year, but this season I've really tried to hone in. And I think I'm not looking for the rage bait anymore. I know we had Cam Oliver as an MVP last season, but I think this season I'm a bit more calculated with my approach.
I'm still waiting for my money to be sent over for all the bets that we had in those.
Double or nothing.
Unlucky, Adam Forde, you've been resigned to last place because Josh has put you as Coach of the Year. Jez, you're on a different or a similar train of thought in terms of a coach with a team that is possibly on the way up.
Yeah, well, I think we saw Tatum sort of put the template down for my pick here, and that's Josh King. He was definitely up there and in contention last year for Coach of the Year, but you couldn't not give it to Tatum, I don't think. But Josh King, in that individual year last year, coming in and taking over Southeast Melbourne when they were rubbish, like they would look like they were going to be in big trouble, and took them into the playoffs and just transformed sort of the whole culture there. It wasn't just sort of, hey, they started to get some results. It feels like Southeast Melbourne needed a shift, and he created it. And it feels like everybody around the Phoenix has so much faith in him. And it really just seems like it's almost like a carbon copy of Tatum the year before or the 2 years before when he came in and lifted Illawarra. So I just think, I don't know, I have a lot of faith in Southeast Melbourne. I know Josh seems to rank them down as having one of the worst off seasons in the NBL, but I want to see it. I think he's just gone for an unfamiliar attack to the off season and brought in some players that maybe others wouldn't look at. And I don't know, and that sort of makes me think a little bit. And if we know what he's been able to do before, I think you've got to put a lot of faith in that now that he actually has his own pieces of the puzzle there. So yeah, I just see that if he can take them and take them long into the playoffs again, or have them sort of ranking in the top 4 after the regular season, I think he's definitely got to be up there and be a part of this award. I think we sort of forget how well Southeast Melbourne played defensively through a large period of last season, and now they've brought in some different guys that can certainly be role players and get them maybe some more scoring and some more consistency. So yeah, I think that they can do it. I see them as being sort of the shock of this year. There's not a lot of talk about them. And if he can then take them up to the top 4, then all of a sudden he's definitely got to be in the conversation. But I like Forde as well. I think he's spot on.
Do you think that with Josh King, right, it's such an interesting one because, like, I think if he finishes top 4, I think he's a genuine sniff. But, like, where's the bottom line? Like, if he finishes 6th, is he still a chance of Coach of the Year? Because I just don't see this team really contending. Like you speak about the defensive side of the basketball, I think they've lost a lot of that this season. Vren's I know Matt Hurt wasn't the best sort of defensive player, but at least he could sort of bang it with the big boys down below. I don't think Vren's is going to be able to do that. John Brown looks like he's going to be somewhat solid. They've lost Derek Walton Jr. as well as that point guard. So there's a lot of changes. So if they finish 5th or 6th, is he still a chance?
I don't think so. I think if he's going to be a genuine chance, I think they have to finish at the top of the up in that top echelon of teams this year for sure. But I don't know. Matt Hurt, man, he was awesome, but he wasn't very good defensively. There was a lot of times where he got found out last year, especially in the playoffs, where he was the link. He was the bad link in that defensive chain. So maybe that's why they moved on from Matt Hurt. Who knows?
All right, boys, let's move on to our next award, and it is the Next Generation Award, the best up-and-coming young player. And I think we're all in agreement here on who this player is. Jez, I'll give you the word.
Yeah, I think we discussed him a lot over the last, few weeks since we've been back online at the Basketball Fix properly. It's, Karim Lopez. I think everything points to him being the best young player, one of the best that's ever come out of the NBL. I think this second year, having a year under his belt, we're going to see him play a much bigger role in New Zealand. It's going to be more minutes, more points, big stage, going into the draft. I think the NBL would almost want to give him the best defensive player of the year or the best young player of the year because it's just going to boost the NBL's credentials even more because you've got sort of this best young guy that played 2 years in the NBL, wins the award, maybe makes some moves in the draft, goes top 2. I don't know. The script's perfect, really. I just don't see anybody else in contention for Karim Lopez if he can live up to even sort of 80% of the hype that we've sort of built over the last 3 weeks. Yeah, I just think this one's pretty clear cut, and I think we've all agree on that.
But Josh, let's turn just so we have a bit of kind of discussion in this one, considering we're all on the same level. What could it be for Karim that maybe doesn't get him over the line in this award?
Well, it might not be Karim as per se. Like when I look at the former winners of this award, so it was Sam Wardenberg, Sam Froling, and Alex Tui. So, what you're looking with Sam Wardenberg and Sam Froling is those guys who sort of, in a way, they won like a most improved award. They were kind of, finding their feet, and then they had that big year and they had that step up, and then they've gone, okay, this is your next gen award year. And, we sort of spoke about it last season. For me personally, last year, like my next gen award player wasn't Alex Tui. It was actually Sam Menenga. I thought Sam Menenga had an incredible season last year. But again, you have that romantic side of it all where you want to give it to the guy who's going to go to the NBA and have that pedigree on the draft board night as well, because that's what they're going to talk about. Alex Tui, pick 52 to the Golden State Warriors, a former Sydney King member. He won the Next Gen Award in the NBL. Instantly, it gives that sort of push back to the NBL, and that's what they want. Now, we're not saying right now that they're going to rig this in favor of Karim Lopez, but there will be somebody this year who just comes out of nowhere, and he's going to be in conversation. But for me, I think it's a clear-cut award for Karim Lopez, but who knows? Dash Daniels, there's not been much talk about him, but he's an incredible talent as well. And he's also going to be in contention for this. And the other guy, I've still got to figure out, and I feel so bad, I've still got to figure out how to say this bloke's name, but I'm just going to call him Noah. Noah from the Perth Wildcats. When I say that this kid is going to be a genuine superstar in the future, like he has all the characteristics, the confidence, the leadership, the prowess on both ends of the court. This kid is a genuine superstar, and it wouldn't surprise me if his name is also in the conversation at the end of the season. But it's an easy one for me. Karim Lopez, like all of us, I think he's going to be a lock for the Next Gen Award.
We was trying to get the name here so our resident name expert could...
I was going to have a crack at it, but I can't even find... I can't find it.
I'll try and get it up quickly whilst we move on.
All right, the next award, while you boys are looking at that, is the Most Improved Player. And the sub... Oh, he's found it.
This is tough, man. It's
even hyphenated. Noah Kakawa Hujin.
Oh my God.
Kakawa Hujay.
Hujay. He's French, yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
The French don't pronounce all their letters. In post-production...
Good call, taken not taking the risk there, Josh. Well played, sir.
Put it up on the screen in post, Josh, so everybody can read it somewhere here, and they can try and pronounce it at home for themselves. The most improved player I've put up here, who comes back from the brink, and I think this award specifically over many different sports right now, you're seeing a bit of a shift in how this award is given out. And is it a player that's coming back from injury, possibly, which is kind of a lot of it. It's like players maybe suffered a horrific injury and then comes back and regains their elite status. But I think you always have to have a look at guys that have played at a pretty low level and haven't really given much and then have a breakout year. I think that's what a most improved player, because if you look at an injured player, it's like, well, they were injured. They were good before they got injured, and then they weren't because they weren't there. But an improved player is someone that was not very good, and now they're very good. Josh, what are your thoughts around this award?
Yeah, I was going to actually sort of sum up. I think you're bang on as well. And the way I look at this award and the way you've got to kind of look at it when you're looking at previous winners of this award is the previous 4 winners of this award. So you had Tyrell Harrison win it last year. So what happened to him? So he went from a role player behind Aaron Baines to a through and through star in the NBL. So that was the step from, that sort of role player to starter. And there's a couple of steps you can do. So you can go from a no-name to a role player. You can go from a role player to a star, and then you can go from a star to a superstar. And when you go to the year before that, Sean McDonald, what happened to him? Role player to a genuine star in the NBL and a very important piece of the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. And the 2 years before that, it was Keanu Pinder. And he sums up what I was talking about, a no-name to a role player to a superstar. And that's where I kind of go with this, because a year and a half ago, Will Hickey's name was somewhat of a no-name in the NBL circles. No one was speaking about him. No one was speaking about him even close to being the most important player for the Illawarra Hawks, coming off the bench and providing the spark and the defensive capabilities and the offensive capabilities as well. So this is where I see him go from that role player last season to a genuine starter and star in the NBL. He's got all the capabilities and characteristics to follow in line with a guy like Trey Kell, in terms of the playmaking, obviously the scoring prowess and the defensive ability as well. So I think for me personally, if he can hold down this point guard position for the whole season and they don't go out for whatever reason and make a change mid-season, I think personally that we'll see Will Hickey walk away with the most improved trophy at the end of the season.
But Josh, could you not argue that maybe he should have won it last year? Because what kind of journey is he going to have to do this year to improve and to have, you got to base it on the season in progress, and to have an improved season on that which he delivered last year means they have to win the championship, and he has to be ideally the best player on the team, or what?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they have to win a championship as per se though. But when you look at his statistics, it was sort of that mid to late period last season where he really got going. At the start of the season, it wasn't like we were seeing these incredible performances every single game, because when you look at his statistics, he still only averaged 10.1 points per game, 4 rebounds and 5 assists. So sorry, 4 assists and 5 rebounds. So they're not numbers that blow you off the park. So if he goes and averages 15 points, 5 or 6 rebounds and 6 or 7 assists, which I think he definitely could throughout a whole entire season, we're now seeing the makings of a guy who is genuinely building his NBL career and his professional career as well. That's where I sort of see it. Like I mentioned with Keanu Pinder, for example, he went from a pretty good starter to a genuine superstar, and that's why they gave him the award. And I think Will Hickey could be on the same trajectory. His confidence is sky high. He's been in the NBA Summer League, hanging around with the Australian Boomers camp as well. So I think this has got all the seeds of one of those guys who goes from a role player or a star player from last season to a genuine superstar in NBL 26.
Yeah, I'm a little bit in the same type of track, to be honest. I'm looking at Josh Bannan. We love the Banana Man, and I think the change of scenery for him can lift him from being he was good. His numbers last season, averaging 13.2 points, 8.6 rebounds, 1.7 assists. So they're not bad numbers, but I think we saw in moments when he played for Brisbane where he could play at a different level. And I think obviously he also hanging around the Boomers, played a few games. I think he debuted last year as well on the international stage. And I feel like that's we're going to see more of Josh Bannan. Obviously, if he can stay healthy, and I think it's also really important that Magnay stays healthy as well. So I don't know. That's a little bit of a risk going to Tasmania, who maybe doesn't have the best track record in keeping guys on the court at the moment. But I think if those two guys can work in combo, I think being there with Will Magnay and the experience that he brings, and Magnay can be more of a defensive cornerstone, and we can see maybe the best offense from Bannan. I think when he was really sort of the light for the Brisbane Bullets is when he's like really flirting every game or through sort of patches for this double-double type of guy, because he can, if he's sitting up around 10 rebounds a game and also moving up, instead of sort of hitting the 13 mark, you're looking more at, say, 17 to 20 points. I think that's when we're going to see, okay, shit, Josh Bannan is the real deal. And he's had his time, obviously, trying to get in the NBA as well. But you sort of go to Tasmania, maybe you go, okay, now I'm just going to focus on playing basketball in the NBL and be a superstar in this league. And that's going to be better for him. And I think he's in the right environment there now, but got to stay healthy.
But do you think that if you're going to Tasmania, and we've seen for a number of years that they've had a pretty defensive focused gameplay, we know that they can turn it on in spaces, but if Bannan has to improve his scoring and his facilitating, is Tasmania the right spot for him to do that?
Yeah, well, I think so, because I think we've seen a shift in who that they've brought into Tasmania, and there's been, it feels like, a mentality shift there, that they realise that they can't lean on the defence like they did a couple of years ago when they won the championship. It was a shit fight last year because they couldn't score enough points. So now we can go, okay, Magnay can be that rock. Bannan, you can play a little bit more expansive. And I think times in Brisbane, he was also playing in the 5 with Tyrell Harrison being injured, but which could happen again, of course. But if everything goes to plan, I think we can see him take the next level, be more involved in offense and play maybe more of that game that he wants to play, because he was lights out when he's in that mode for Brisbane last season.
All right, boys, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and get into the second half of our award show. Okay, boys, it is time for the 6th man of the year. I'm just making sure that's what's on our list. Yep. Perfect. It's good having this little studio set up, the production in my lap here. Josh has done the run sheet.
You like a production in your lap, don't you,
Ryan? Oh, a bit of production in my lap. Here I've written bench.
It's usually in the dark lights with a really bad smell when there's productions going on in your lap, but we'll take the iPad in a studio.
Bench intensity can be key to a championship. And
did you write that?
I wrote that.
Wow.
So we've spoken already about Will Hickey and the intensity that he brought to the Hawks championship run. And not only that, Darius Days, I don't think he gets enough credit in what he brought off the bench. And I don't know, it was halfway through the year or 2/3 of the way through the year where he was put back to the bench and had a defined role and really excelled in that. And it helped the team really get over that hump into being the premier team in the league. The 6th man or any bench player, I think, is so important in the NBL because of how deep your bench needs to be, because of the spread of players and talent around the league. You need to be able to
just laughing about deep and spread and productions in my lap. I don't know where this is going, Ryan.
All right, I'll just hand it over to Josh and he can go over it.
You boys are going to kill my reputation at Fox before it even starts. I'll tell you that much for free. But I think you're bang on, mate. And has there been a big stigma change with 6 man? Because, when you used to think about with the 6 man of the year, it was always, just some old head. You know what I mean? Who would just sort of fade away in the NBA and would win an NBA 6 man. We saw, was it Lou Williams and Jamal Crawford? They were just the clinical 6 man of the years in the NBA. Just genuine guys who probably could start but not be that great, but come off the bench and still give you good production. But now I feel like, especially in the NBL, there's been a major shift where we've seen imports brought over here to be six mans. So Ian Clark is the perfect example. You know, a guy who's come over here, his sole production is to come off the bench and score 15 to 16 points per game. We saw a couple of years ago, Barry Brown Jr. for the New Zealand Breakers, the exact same thing, coming behind Willie McDowell-White and just score baskets and just play a free flow of basketball as well. So this year, this is an interesting one for me, and it may be somewhat controversial, but I'm going to go down it. Now, Ben Henshall is who I've picked for my sixth man of the year. Now, do I believe he's going to play enough games this season on the bench to be eligible for this award? That is my only concern for it. But for me, for the Perth Wildcats to have their most consistent and I think all-rounded starting five, it has to be Mason Jones at the point guard, Sunday Detch at the two to be able to guard guys like Bryce Cotton, Kendrick Davis, Matthew Dellavedova, Tyler Harvey, the top point guards and shooting guards in the league, and then Dylan Windler, Kristian, Doolittle, and Joe Luala-Chul. Now, that doesn't mean that Ben Henshall won't start from time to time. But for me, if I'm the Perth Wildcats coaching system, all I'm saying to Ben is there's no pressure. Let's just come on, ease yourself into the game, and let's just try and score between 12 and 16 points per game. And if he does that coming off the bench, I don't think there'll be anyone close to him this season in terms of this award, and he'll walk away with this award very, very quickly. But there's a few concerns for me. Will Ben be open to that? He's a very confident young kid. We've seen him have multiple interviews telling everyone he's an NBA lottery pick last season when undrafted. And the other concern for me is as well, have they sold the farm to him this season to get him back into the NBL? Did they say, you're a starter, you're a guaranteed, you get X amount of minutes guaranteed, we want to put you back into the NBA, and that's the reason why he signed in Perth, potentially over another NBL team. So there's a couple of things that we aren't privy to behind the closed doors. But again, I think it's the perfect role for Ben Henshall. I'd love to hear what you boys say, but for me, this is who I'm locking in as my NBL sixth man of the year.
Do you just think that he's going to find the consistency? I just feel last season, like it was sort of a competition really between sort of Henshall and Pepper and who was going to sort of come on and have the biggest impact when they were on the court. And it felt like a little bit like, yeah, sometimes he won and sometimes he didn't. Like he needs to be able to prove that he can consistently come on and do that. And maybe that puts him in a little bit of a position, like you said, because if he's in second minds and a little bit pissed off or unsettled about, hey, I was supposed to be a starter and now I'm on the bench, and you're sitting there and you're a little bit bitter, maybe that doesn't help with finding the stability that he needs to be able to play consistently off the bench and get those points and rack up those stats that you say that he's going to need to win the award.
Yeah, well, I think when you look at it, though, quickly, sorry, before you jump in, Ryan, like if Ben is to make the next step to the NBA, he has to figure out that he's not going to be the star player. Because if he wants to play in the NBA, he's going to be a role player. He needs to become accustomed and be comfortable with coming off of the bench and just being a guy who will potentially get 5 or 6 shots a game and be happy with that. So I think this would be a major step in his development. I think NBA teams would really love it. Look what Alex Tui did last season. There were patches throughout the season last year where he just came off the bench and lit it up. And his draft stock, I think, got better as the season went on because people were just like, wow, he can start, he can come off the bench, he's got no problems with it. He's got a great sort of head on his shoulders as well. So I think it's a big step in the right direction for Ben if he doesn't and has, control of this role. But I've been seeing a lot of depth charts and I can kind of understand it, but I don't at the same time. But a lot of depth charts have been saying that Elijah Pepper will play the point guard and Ben Henshall will play the shooting guard coming off the bench. Now, we saw what Elijah Pepper did at the point guard position for the Warwick Senators, essentially, with how many points and assists he was giving out. So that could be a way that it works. So I don't know. These two guys have got to coexist on the court at the same time. Otherwise, John really will pull the plug, and one will be sitting down the end of the bench and one will be on the court at all times.
That could very much happen. Jez, you're on a different train of thought.
Yeah, on Owen Foxwell, almost the next-gen player of the year last year, coming off the bench. I think we see the impact and energy that he has, a little bit like, I think, a lot of the similar type of attributes that Will Hickey can bring to a team, because he just comes in like an absolute pocket rocket and makes things happen, and at both ends of the court. He can find consistency when he's shooting, and he can also make some big defensive plays. He's an absolute pest. Yeah. I think we saw it in the NBL 1. He averaged 2.5 steals per game in the NBL 1 in New Zealand just this off season. So I think we see that. He also, the production and point scoring, yes, it's the NBL 1 in New Zealand, but 17.6 points per game, 8 assists, 4.5 rebounds. He's this big. Like, he shouldn't be able to sort of stock up 4.5 rebounds a game either and still being able to drop buckets and steal and weigh 60 kilos. So just think when, like, I can just see the energy that he's going to bring. It's going to be extremely important to have that in Southeast Melbourne. And they do have a pretty good second unit. So if he can be the guy that leads that second unit and brings the energy and really develops that sort of, second five, I think we'll see Owen Foxwell be absolutely in contention.
Okay, let's move on to our defensive player of the year. It was a really good segue there, Jez, because we spoke about the defense that Foxwell provides, and now we're getting into the lockdown defenders. Lock them down, baby.
Lock it
the
down.
NBL, for so long known as a defensive-minded league. Josh, you have the catchphrase there ready to go from old mate Homicide. What is it?
This ain't a cupcake league, baby. You can see his jersey in the background as well. I've been running that now. There it is, the great man as well. Rest in peace. But this ain't no cupcake league, my dog.
That's it. Now, defense is a massive contributor to winning championships. We saw the Tassie Jack Jumpers. Illawarra. little fart to the nice in this little room that we're in. Like it was a fake leather.
Was it?
Yeah. The Hawks weren't a defensive powerhouse last season, but they had individual players that could play defense.
Yeah.
One of those guys, Wani, Swaka, Buluk.
I'm glad you said his name because that's too many names in there for me to put together in one name. So I would have.
But I think there's so many players that have maybe that two guard position that are on a defensive mastermind of a team, and you see them multiple games per season. It's like you get a superstar player come on the court and they're scoring 8 points, or they've gone scoreless in a quarter.
Yeah.
And Wani was one of those guys that could really attack a player and cause them to disrupt the flow of the team.
Yeah.
What else have you seen from him that you think he could feature in this award?
Yeah, like I think obviously with Shae Illy not being sort of a part of the NBL at least the start of the season, he's obviously dominated this award for a while, and I think like obviously he smashed everybody by 30 votes last year to over just Wani. But so I think it just puts Wani in a spot where he can now take this award and make it his own for a while. And I think if Illawarra are going to contend and be up there this year with sort of the changes and the uncertainty around their team, I think Wani needs to go to even another level. I think we saw it last year where he absolutely, like you said, he was their shutdown guy. It was like incredible the stuff that he could do, shutting down all the big names in the league, including Bryce Cotton and Kendrick Davis. Like being that guy, he needs to do that again, and he's going to need to do it at a whole nother level if Illawarra are going to be that team, because you can't see them just straight away being that offensive force that they were. So they need to be doing something defensively, and it all rests on the backbone of Wani.
Josh, who are you looking at for this award this year?
Yeah, well, I want to quickly just touch on Wani. I think it's a good selection there, Jez, and he was probably somewhat unlucky to lose last year to Shae Illy, but again, you just really can't, take anything away from Shae Illy. That guy is a defensive pest, and he's one of the best, if not the best, defensive players heading into NBL 26. But for me, I'm going to take a little bit of a stab in the dark, and if this bloke wins the award, he will be the first big man since Andrew Bogut in 2018 and 2019 to win the award, and that's Will Magnay. Now, we have concerns. We know the biggest concern is him staying on the park. Last season, I believe he only played, I had the stat last night in my head. I think it was 11 or 12 games last season out of the 28 games that you're supposed to play. So I could be wrong there, so don't preface me. But, he didn't play many games last season. That's as simple as it is. But he is a defensive menace, and we absolutely know that. So last season, in the limited impact that he did have, or limited games he did have, I should say, he finished the season with 1.6 blocks per game, 1.2 steals, and 7.1 rebounds per game. But the biggest thing for me, for my little statistician nerds out there as well, defensive rating is one of those statistics that when you are looking from an analytical perspective and you want to take that bit more of a deep dive into it, we know how important this statistic is. So what this stat does is basically estimates how many points an opposing team will score per 100 possessions. So the lower your number is, that obviously means the lower your opponent's team is going to score, and it means the better the rating is for a player. Now, Will Magnay had the best defensive rating in the whole of the NBL. Now, obviously, a stat like this, there are some people who go, oh, it doesn't really make sense because it's not an individual person's rating as per se. It is a team rating when that player is on the court. But for guys like Will Magnay, who we know are such good defensive players and are really crucial to the team's defensive systems, this award couldn't be, and this rating couldn't be more important as well. So, yeah, the number one defensive player last season, if he was to play more games last year, he would have well and truly been in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year in NBL 25. And I think for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, you've got your new sort of look franchise. He's your new captain. And I think he's going to be on a mission to really make the Jack Jumpers rise in NBL 26.
All right. Interesting. Well, all the individual awards now are done. And I'm sure, Josh, you're going to put this out on socials. So you had something there?
Still one more. There's still one more. There's still the biggest award of all. There's a couple more.
Yeah, but the ones that are not the important one. They'll be out on socials, and you can absolutely hound Josh for his picks there and agree with us because that's what normally happens. But now we're down to the pointy end of the season, the NBL champion and the finals MVP. Well, I've connected these into one segment because they're pretty reliant on each other, and I want to go first to you, Josh, and I want to preface this little segment. I don't want to drag it out too long. I know it's a difficult situation for you with the movement of your best little doll that you've held on to so long in the NBL in Bryce Cotton, and the way he just left you in tatters in Perth, and then you ran after him to Adelaide, and you shouted to the world on this podcast about your love for the Adelaide 36ers and how they were going to win the comp. And now, as you alluded to at the beginning of the program, Mark Arena's got his checkbook out. Was he the reason you've signed with Fox, by the way? Did he have something to do with this and why you're now back on that?
That was just all hard work and commitment now, mate. You know what it's like.
Okay. Mate, tell us why.
With lap production. Hard work and dedication in lap production, right?
Oh, no.
Tell us why you are back on the Perth Wildcats to win the NBL 26 championship.
Now, what's that song that the English always sing when the soccer's on in the World Cup? It's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home, it's coming home. My hometown Perth Wildcats are going to be the NBL 26 champions. Now, I was at the NBL season launch last week, and Larry Kesselman was standing, I reckon, no further than 5 meters away from me. And he goes, any expert out there who can predict the NBL champion, I'll give them everything. You know, they're the smartest man in the NBL. So, Larry, just a little preface for you right here, right now, mate. I am predicting and will predict the NBL champion for NBL 26. But for me, we had to wait for the last piece.
Josh, I'm having deja vu here, man, of a similar conversation we might have had about 12 months ago, right?
And weren't Perth going to win the comp then as well?
Remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were close. We finished second ladder last year, so
third ladder
last year. Third last year, boys. You get off it.
Okay. Did you play in the for the championship or?
We were close. One game out from Melbourne.
Okay.
So we were close.
Right. Just wanted to clear that up. Go back to your monologue.
Let's get back, all right? Let's stop living in the past. You know, we've had, if we want to go start living in the past, the Perth Wildcats have got 10 NBL championships, all right? So I can more than happy start ringing off those banners left, right, and centre, boys. But for me, I think the Perth Wildcats are poised. And one thing that we see in sport all the time is storylines. Now, could you imagine the storyline that the Perth Wildcats lose Bryce Cotton at the start of the off-season? There's controversy. They don't give him enough time, supposedly, and all this stuff happens. Bryce ends up back in the NBL for the Adelaide 36ers. The Perth Wildcats, basically all their fans are at RAC Arena with bloody pitchforks trying to gouge out Mark Arena's eyes. All right, Mark Arena, he then goes and gives the checkbook to Joe Lawala-Chul. Wildcats fans start to rejoice a little bit. Then it goes quiet for months. All right, it goes quiet for a couple of months. Then they go and sign Mason Jones this past week. And I shit you not, Wildcats fans all around Australia are up and about heading into NBL 26. Now, we are not saying that Mason Jones is a like-for-like replacement for Bryce Cotton, but if he can give 75% of the production that Bryce Cotton was able to give last season, I think the Perth Wildcats are well and truly one of the most balanced teams on the defensive end and the offensive end as well. Now, we've spoken about the starting lineup, but their depth, I think, needs to have a bit more oomph and a bit more, talk about them as well. So potentially Ben Henshall, Elijah Pepper. Let's just go with the starting lineup I spoke about earlier. So Ben Henshall coming off the bench, Elijah Pepper, you've got Lat Mayan, you've got Jesse Wagstaff, you've got David Aquera, you've got Mr. Noah, you've even got Dante Russo-Nance. It's a relatively strong, interesting lineup here for the Perth Wildcats, and all are versatile. You've got the size, you've got the sort of defensive ability, you've got the offensive ability. I love what I'm seeing from the Perth Wildcats. And I guess the big thing as well is I'm a massive believer in Kristian Doolittle. So if the Perth Wildcats are to win the NBL Championship for NBL 26, I'm just that excited right now speaking about it. I can already envision it in my head, boys. But I think Kristian Doolittle walks away with the NBL Finals MVP as well. And I think it would be a really deserving award, and one of those ones where you just see an absolute rise from one of the young guns in the NBL. He's only 27 years of age. He just seems so much older. But all reports out of the Perth Wildcats camp, he's as fit as he's ever been. He's as strong as he's ever been. And he definitely looks like that as well. So I am super excited about this season. But once again, though, we're throwing an absolute blanket over the field this season, and one is going to walk away with the NBL Championship.
Yeah, I agree that it's pretty much impossible. I agree with Larry. It's impossible to predict what is actually going to happen.
Now you're trying to get into Larry's lap. You
want to deal
with Fox Sports as well, mate.
Yeah, I'm trying. I saw just following in the footsteps of the master as the young little Padawan learner, get my production on. But I don't know, if we're talking storylines, if we're going to go down this road of storylines, I'm taking the storyline that's basically the other path to the storyline that you went on, Josh. I was all about the Sydney Kings, but yeah, they haven't really impressed at the start of the year. So I'm following the storyline of Bryce Cotton, starved of a championship in Perth, starved of a citizenship in Perth, wants to be an Australian, wants to be a boomer, wants to win a championship again, because the MVPs, they hit the spot, but not the spot that needs to be hit. We all know about that.
He wants his team to... his organisation to build a team around him.
That's right. Have the stars, have the limelight, be the centre of the town, the hero. So what does he do? Just gets on his bike, pedals over to the next state, the closest guys that are going to appreciate him, give him what he needs, work things out with the Australian government to get his citizenship, put a Boomers jersey on, and most importantly, lift the title once again, because after 5 years, it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen. They're starved out in Perth. So come to Adelaide, be the hero of the Adelaide 36ers, and bring that organisation back to greatness with Bryce Cotton, Montrezl Harrell, and even old DJ Vasiljevic is going to be there lifting the title with Bryce Cotton and change the face of the Adelaide 36ers future for the next generation.
Wow.
Woo! Yes. Well, I think it's definitely an interesting case, and you make a very, very good point. And 23 years in the making for the Adelaide 36ers fans. They've stayed loyal for long enough. I think it is time for an NBL championship for them. But
are you jumping back on the boat now, or what? Are you shifting back after that story? I don't know where you sit anymore, Josh. You're like on one side,
you know where I sit,
on the other side.
I'm one of those. I'm doing the perfect sort of, beg them for me back. Mark Arena wanted me that bad back at the Red Army. He went out and signed an absolute stud of an import. That's as simple as it is, boys. So it's all worked out. It's all paid off. I'm back in red. I've got to go put a jersey up in the back shelf here very soon. I've got a Kristian Doolittle jersey on the way. Cost me $130, bear in mind. But again, I think the Perth Wildcats are going to win, but I'm not opposed to LA 36ers winning as well. They will be my second team this season. We know we love doing that as well.
All right, boys. Last award of the show, and it is the NBL26 MVP. Can Cotton take another crown, or will it be maybe a new import or a young Australian that could possibly light up the courts around the country? Josh, we've heard enough from this bloke over the last couple of minutes. How about you take this one and ride with it first?
All right, I've been trying to perfect this. Before the start of the show, I was muting myself and trying to get this going as well. Let's give it a bit of a go. Bah! Bryce Cotton will become the greatest NBL player at the end of the season. All right, Bryce Cotton. All right, I am giving it to him right now. He will be NBL MVP number 6 at the end of the season. Only one behind Andrew Gaze. And we had this conversation last season about, Gazy with the longevity and played so many more games. And, the statistics are in his favour purely because of the change in minutes as well between his era and the modern era of the NBL as well. But 6 NBL MVPs in the greatest NBL period and NBL sort of era that there has ever been. I think Bryce Cotton is the greatest player of all time and has to be the NBL MVP for NBL 26. Are you boys on board with this? I think this is the easiest one ever. Well, we thought Karim Lopez was easy, but I think Bryce Cotton's even easier.
Yeah, I'm obviously on board. 100%. I think he can definitely do it. It's hard to see, who's going to contend, but just one of these imports could do something. That's sort of the biggest, fear against this is there's so much high-quality talent in the league this year. Someone could be Mason, could be, Tiger from Tassie. It could be any of these guys could have a massive year. We just don't know, and that's what's exciting. 10 days out from the NBL is anything can happen. So, but if you're gonna bet, if you're gonna have a punt or a wager, then I think you're crazy to go do anything but say Bryce Cotton will win his 6th.
Guys, I just want to we've spoken a little bit about Sydney Kings and maybe that they could be or they couldn't be. Kendrick Davis was not far away from this award last season. What would it take for Kendrick to be in the conversation again here, Josh?
I think the exact same production will bring you back into the conversation. He had 25 points per game last season with, I believe it was 7.8 assists per game. So, those numbers are incredible. And, if the Sydney Kings are to be what people are saying they're going to be, people are thinking they're going to be a top 3 team this season. Well, then that instantly brings him up because I think the thing that hurt him last season was the fact that he had this incredible, statistical averages, but they finished 6th last season. So he was down on the pecking order. We know how important that is as well. And it's very hard to win the award last season when Bryce Cotton goes out and averages 28.1 points per game. One of the highest, 40-minute era sort of averages we've ever seen. So I think if Kendrick is to average similar numbers this season like he did last year, I can't see Bryce averaging 28 points per game this season for the Adelaide 36ers. I think it will come back down to 23, 24 points per game, which is still massive. But I think we'll see his assists go up. But for me, if Kendrick Davis can average around the same ballpark and the Sydney Kings finish higher than Adelaide last season, he's well and truly into this conversation.
So just a bit of background. He polled 119 votes last season. Kendrick Davis was second on 82 votes, so quite a big difference. Third was Matt Hurt on 65. So, Bryce was far and away the highest vote getter. Kendrick after that as well, quite a distance to third. Matt Hurt now out of league. I want to pose a question to you both, and just off the top, we haven't prepared for this question, so I understand. But if there was somebody that could just kind of come out of nowhere and be in the top 3 votes, like Matt Hurt was last year, who could that player be? Could it be a big that maybe is a strong defensive kind of position on the court? Is there another scorer, or what are we looking at, Josh?
I'm just looking at my top 25 here, and I'm kind of trying to find someone who is not like a proven not necessarily a proven commodity, but hasn't already been in the NBL conversation. So you could say a Casey Prather or a Parker Jackson Cartwright, but I'm going to go Kristian Doolittle. I know I'm Perth Wildcat centric at the back end of this episode, but I just don't care. What you're going to see from him this season is potentially 18, 7, and 7. Like, I definitely think he could be a guy averaging those numbers by the end of the season. So, yeah, I think it's Kristian Doolittle. Like I've mentioned, he's an absolute stud. He's 27 years of age. He's hitting his prime right now. So, for me, Kristian Doolittle is your little smoky. But another one from a fresh import perspective, Javon Freeman Liberty. The dude can score. They're going to be a good team this season. He can play make very well as well, and he's a relatively good defender as well. So, yeah, I think that'd be my two from an import we've seen in the NBL and an import that we're going to see this season.
Freeman Liberty has had a good preseason. The Blitz, he was fantastic. Yeah. So, good shout. You got anyone?
I'm going to throw Jack McVeigh into the conversation because I think we talk about Cairns. We have so much high hopes for Cairns, right? I think everybody wants to see it. It's the story. It's the fairy tale. And I think if you look at, obviously, Wardenberg's going to have to play a massive role. But I think if Cairns are going to be what everybody wants them to be, I think everybody also wants Jack McVeigh to succeed. And I think it could just be, I think the storyline's there. So if he's in contention, if he has, puts up some good numbers, averages around, say, 25 and 8 or whatever, I think all of a sudden Jack McVeigh's in the conversation and it would just be perfect, wouldn't it? Like Cairns Taipans make the playoffs. Maybe they even win a playoff game and they go in there and Jack McVeigh gets MVP.
Just trying to find now if I have the points from 2024 when McVeigh was back in, but Bryce Cotton again, 118 votes, Chris Goulding 53, Parker Jackson Cartwright 50 in NBL 24. But good shout. I like the Parker Jackson Cartwright shout. I think New Zealand...
Yeah, Jack averaged about 18 points.
Yeah. I think Petteri Koppinen could be a dark horse for Coach of the Year as well. Just the way that he already turned around this Breakers team, or lifted them in that last season. Even through injury, through the whole Taco Fall saga, I think he's a fantastic coach with a great basketball mind. And I think this new invigorated Breakers team could be, a strong contender this year with Parker Jackson. Back in black. All right, boys. Massive episode, an hour, done and dusted. And just a quick episode again, wasn't it, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought it was going to be, but the news, I guess, took over a little bit.
Well, the news that you shifted from Adelaide back to Perth, that news.
Oh, that's as big as anything, I guess. Yeah, heading into NBL26.
We know that people don't watch all the way to the end here, but if you're still watching, if you haven't already subscribed, do it right now. Comment all your award predictions in the comments so we can follow that all season long. And if anyone gets it right, Josh will pin them at the top and tell them they're fantastic. So you get a shout out as well.
Josh loves a shout out.
Exactly.
Love it.
Josh, we'll be back again next week talking some pre-season stuff with the start of the NBL 26 season right around the corner. Boys, it has been a pleasure once again. And as always, we hope you've gotten your basketball fix.